We're back.
What's up, and welcome back to is it the 6th episode?
It is the sixth
episode. Unfortunately, sans Corey on this one. Corey's going to be out for this episode.
Because he's a bitch.
So we should probably cut that, but we're not going to. We're going to roll with it. We're just going to talk about what we did for the last 2 weeks since the last episode. A couple new things have been introduced to DJs for technology. We could talk about some things that you were talking about on Netflix and what's happening in the state of Minnesota in the United States. So let's just start with what you did, what your Labor Day weekend entailed.
I flew out to Traverse City. I went to see...
Where's Traverse City?
It's in the northern part of Michigan. It's about 4 hours north of Detroit. It's not little. It's on Lake Michigan. There's probably 50, 60,000 people that live in Traverse City. They got a Costco and an airport. So,
Okay.
But I was an hour north of there in Bel Air, where my best friend Brent lives. And he was going through some shit, so I just decided to fly out there and see what's up, make sure he was good. Went on Torch Lake, which is like the ocean in the middle of the forest. It's a bit crazy. And then there was a Trump boat parade. It was hilarious. There was, I don't know, 5,000 boats or something.
So did you play out there, or you just went out there and hung out?
I was going to play out there, but then it was just, the water was super rough from all the boats. And it was only like 74 degrees, so it wasn't 90.
Not a lot of people in the water then, probably.
Oh, there's shitloads of people in the water.
Like actually physically in the water?
But the Trumpers had all they had all the boats lined up. Well, that's what they call them.
Is it? So what I did is maybe not as crazy as what you did.
It wasn't that crazy. It was just it was actually kind of relaxing.
I just ended up DJing locally at Mavericks and a couple of places. I was actually scheduled to DJ kind of a similar scenario but smaller scale, and they had it was on St. Croix. And it was with Delane and Dustin Hayes. But they had a Trump rally there as well. And I guess one or more boats sunk because of the wakes or whatever. I guess I never heard of that. I would never think that. But the boaters were like, oh, this is just common etiquette if you have a boat to not, when you got thousands of boats. I think there's over 1,000 boats out there. Our buddy Luke and a few other people were out there actually boating, and they said that like it submerged boats completely, like sunk them.
Well, it's the buoyancy of the boat. So the deeper the hull, the more wake it's going to put off. And that's why, like, when you see wake surfers or wakeboarders, they put a water bag in the back to push the bottom down, so it creates a bigger wake, so that the wave, you can surf the wave.
I didn't know that.
Or you get a bigger wake. And so what happens is you get these smaller boats that have small hulls, and their boats are getting smashed by these waves, so the water basically just overflows and sinks your boat, and there's no way to get all that water out. It's hilarious.
What was the craziest thing that happened while you're out there? Because I got to imagine with thousands of people, there's always some wild person.
I mean, you had titties for Trump.
Okay.
A bunch of women walk around with their tops off. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. It's all, everybody's free the nipple anyway, right? So free them all. But it was more just like we kind of stayed on the other side of the sandbar, because there's this giant sandbar that runs on one side of the lake. And so it's like 400 feet here, and then it's 1 foot here.
Oh, wow.
So it's the sandbar that usually recedes to around the middle of July from just evaporation and stuff, where people can actually like park their boat. But we were in probably like 6 or 8 inches of water, and then you just put your anchors out and sit out there. But like there was a giant wall of Trumpers and just flags. It was hilarious. And then big engine boats, and people are, revving their boats and all this stuff. And
with this kind of being like a big event, was it a scheduled thing? The Trump, it was okay.
Yeah. It was nationwide.
Oh, okay.
It was in Texas. It was in Missouri. It was in Kansas. It was
because I didn't know anything about
Lake
this. I didn't
of the
pay attention. I
Ozarks.
just was like, this is just kind of ironic that a bunch of people got together. They're all like, we're all voting for this person.
Lake Minnetonka, St. Croix, a bunch of, Lake Mille Lacs up north. There was another lake, Bel Air Lake, it's right next to Bel Air. So Torch, and they kind of like, or the water flows into each other. And so I guess there was another parade that went up there, that because those people don't necessarily like going on Torch, and they have their own lake. So they had another rally up there, boat parade, whatever. But
So with this being like an event,
it was a
and-
national event.
yeah, and events kind of being limited, especially indoor ones, and Halloween being right around the corner. What's speculating here? What do you think's going to happen in the next couple of months? Because I've kind of been talking around, asking DJs, should I throw a Halloween event? If I do, is there going to be zombie pub crawl? That's like a big thing. If in Minneapolis, for the people that are listening outside of Minnesota, zombie pub crawl is huge.
Largest
Yeah,
in the
there's
nation.
thousands of people that go to this.
30,
10
40,000.
Yeah. So if this doesn't happen, there are going to be people that are on board with, following regulations or following, not being around people. But there are going to be the other people that are kind of my key demographic that are going to be like, I still want to party. I still want to go somewhere. I still want to do something. I'm not going to shut my life down completely. So if that happens, then I'll kind of divert, what I'm going to do. But what's your take on the next month and a half? Because for an event, you got to kind of plan a little in advance. What do you think for Halloween? You think it's going to happen? Are you going to throw any events? Have you heard of anybody talking about events?
Well, I'm just not going to talk about them. I'm just going to do them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many people follow what the actual numbers are in Minnesota, but we have 1,830 deaths, and 85% of them, or 70% of them, are in long-term care facilities. So right now, as of today, we have 501 outside, and I don't think anybody under the age of 30, more than one or two people have died in Minnesota. So we have 500 deaths in the last 6 months, and we've had more people killed in car accidents than that.
I was talking
I don't know if that's a fact, but it's pretty close.
I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and I was like, what is it? Because I try to play devil's advocate. I try to see both sides of this, as I know you and Corey do as well. I think that makes you like a well-rounded individual when you're not one-sided, right? You see both sides.
Yeah, you're objective.
Yeah. But I was like, why is this COVID thing? And I mean, this isn't going to be just a COVID episode. We'll talk about DJing and some tech stuff too. But a real serious question, like, why is this so serious versus the swine flu or anything else that causes mass death, whether it be a bacteria, whether it be car accidents and drinking or anything, under the sun? Why is it this that we're choosing? Because there was, I don't quote me exactly, but you can do your own research here and Google a couple different resources and find this out too. I think it was around 1 million people died. It was in the mid 90s from the swine flu in like a 1 year span. And like, I lived through that, and I
think that was global though.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a lot of people, whether it's in one city or the entire world. That's 1 million people that's a lot. It's not like 25 people.
Not 1 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the world population. I mean, we're 7.5 billion.
But why was that just not like, let's shut down the entire, because they didn't know it was only going to be 1 million.
Because it wasn't as contagious as this.
Okay.
And the problem is that it's contagious, yes, but a lot of my family members have had it, no symptoms. My sister-in-law had symptoms for 2 or 3 days. A bunch of my friends have had it, symptoms for a day or no symptoms or 2 days. And the hit pieces that are coming out in the Star Tribune, and fuck the Star Tribune and fuck City Pages, because all they're doing is ruining business. And the lady from First Ave is, when the industry people went to PV Plaza yesterday, it was yesterday or Wednesday, it was a woman from First Ave was basically saying, we need relief or we're fucked. We're not going to, First Ave will close. And if anybody that knows anything about music and what First Ave represents for the city of Minneapolis, and
it's huge.
It's a legacy of music and has brought artists that were unknown at the time and now are massive. I mean, even Prince filmed Purple Rain there. I mean, parts of it. Some of it was in LA, but I mean, the iconicness of First Avenue
I think that's for music. That's like our most iconic venue in the state, right?
in the
For Minnesota.
United States.
Is it?
It's one of the most iconic places in the United States, and I'm sure at the end of the day there will be enough people to come through that would donate money to keep it alive
Sure.
and figure it out. But it's still that these industries can't survive. It's not there's not this pot of gold that's just waiting for us at the end of this. And
Right.
you know, you've been out of work. I've lost 100% of my income because of it, and I'm only making 25% of what I made in a week getting unemployment.
Yeah.
Which is fucking bullshit. And if we can be in Target and we can be in Cub Foods and we can be in Lund's and Byerly's and Best Buy and whatever else, what's the difference? What's the difference of being in a bar versus that? What is the
Right.
difference? And so,
I do feel, and hate me if you want. Again, this is just an opinion, but I do feel there are a lot of people that they're like fear mongers, right? They attach themselves to something that kind of scares them, and then they just exaggerate that. My mom being one, exactly. I actually had a conversation with her. We got in this huge argument, to where I won't talk to her probably for a couple weeks, I'm sure, but but you know, that's family.
Talk to your mom.
That's all normal. That's all normal stuff here. It's family, but she's somebody that is kind of like the problem. I mean, I love her to death, but there are so many people that are like her that read something on Facebook, and maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. Maybe it's only 5% accurate, but they take this as 100% accuracy and then they spread it. She said, I was like, I have plenty of friends that have got this this testing. I actually had a drug test for this job that I just started, and there were, you know, they were doing like the COVID tests as well. So that came up in the conversation. I said, I have plenty of friends that have taken this test, and you know, they do like a 6-inch swab. You can Google it on a million sources, or ask anybody that's had it done.
you got it up the nose?
I haven't had that done yet, no. But I'm going to get it done this week. But she was like, I'm not going to get it done because, like, you know what they do? And I'm like, oh God, what do they do, right? It's like 6 or 9 inches. Well, that's a big difference. It's a 3-inch difference, first of all, right? It's basically just a fucking cotton swab.
It's actually 4 inches. It's this long about, and they have a little thing on the backside.
So you've had it done?
I haven't,
Okay.
but I've had friends that have it done, and no, I won't do that.
They leave it in
fucking
your,
test.
they push it up your nose for like 15 seconds, right?
You tip back and they stick it in your nose, and what they do is they swab for 10 seconds, and you tip your head back far enough so that it goes down your nasal cavity, without having to like bend it, because it will
Sure, yeah,
hurt.
yeah.
It'll hurt like hell if you hits your septum.
Yeah.
And so now there's the nasal swab where it goes in an inch, goes up to here, and they swab the inside. Or there's the throat one that they do the culture. There's a few different ones. But the one I think that everybody should be doing is not that one, is the serology test. Go get your blood test. It's the only way that you're going to know if you've had it or if you currently have it. And I think that would alleviate a lot of fear, a lot of panic, which I think is unwarranted, especially in Minnesota with, there's shitloads of cases, but there's always going to be. And if we got a serology test for everyone, I think that it would basically break the models that they have, because it would show that millions more people have already had it.
Sure.
And with all the people that I know that have had it, including myself, that had no symptoms, how many more are out there that didn't have symptoms, the asymptomatics? And this has
Right.
been a conversation for
You could get in a group
months.
of 3 people, and there's somebody that's like, well, you know, I felt really shitty around January, February for about a month. And they're like, well, you might have had it. Going back to what my mom had said, though, going off of fear and miseducation, I guess, and reading one article that's from Dr. Tom or Dr. Frank, you're like, come, you gotta do a little bit more. You got to do your due diligence here if you really want to have an opinion on something, I think. And she was like, you know what they do is they put it up your nose and they break through the wall that goes to your brain. This is my mom. This is where I grew up. Like, they break through the wall that goes to your brain. I'm not going to do that and have the government put something in my brain or like, you know, I know that there's some like government, you know, conspiracy or something like that. So, I had a friend that had said, it's uncomfortable. It's not painful. It's just you're not used to having something pushed up your nose. And he was like, what it's like is, it's like, have you ever had something go up your nose down to your throat? And I was like, I have actually. I had a polyp on my vocal cord where I lost my voice completely for like 37 days. I literally had not even a chirp could come out of my mouth. And then it was like another.
Holy shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like I used
Holy
to sing.
fuck.
I used to actually sing in a band.
Oh, no shit.
And now like every once in a while, so like you guys ever listen, you hear my voice kind of crack. Now don't be assholes about this, but it'll crack and people are like, oh, you hit puberty. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But really it's because there's like scarring on my vocal cords. So like without getting too grotesque or, profane here, like your vocal cords
that's
look
a hard surgery.
yeah, your vocal cords kind of look like a vagina in a way. It really does. It is like skin around, like a oval of skin, and then when you talk, it does this reverberation, right? And obviously,
It's like
air
chords
comes
on
in.
a piano or string or
Exactly.
guitar or anything.
Yeah, and the polyp was basically built on that, so it was always
They
touching.
lasered it off.
There was no gap. Yeah, so there's no gap, and it was always constantly touching. So they removed it, and they said, and at that point, it was so like the polyp was so big that there was no gap for me to even make noises. But and then they said it's going to take a while for it to heal. So they said go as long as you can, but we want you to do it for like at least a week of no talking, on top of me being fine, just to deal with the scarring and stuff. And they, kind of explain like the difficulties is like don't even think you can whisper because a whisper is worse or equal or worse than screaming on your vocal cords because it's making you move just as fast. Anyways, so they said it's very similar to that. They had to put a tube or like a wire or whatever up my nose to get to my throat, which, if you've never had that done, you'd be like, why wouldn't you just go down your throat? But apparently it's a smoother, path.
It's a bigger hole.
Yeah. And when that, I was like, kind of weird, but it wasn't like I'm in pain. It was just like something weird, like you never had before. So I can kind of comprehend what that would feel like. But going back to the whole, like, lead with information. If you haven't cited at least a couple sources, and our argument ended with basically just, if you're going to talk about these kind of things, you have to cite your sources to me. And I say this to my friends, like, if you vote for Trump or you voted for Hillary, or you're going to vote for whoever, like, have your opinions. I'll have mine. But like, if you're going to bash a person or a religion or things, like, have credible resources behind that. And then I'll actually find like what you're saying valid, right? Like anything.
Yeah, no. Right now there is information war, and we can kind of go on to what I was talking about. There's a new documentary, and I've seen the guy. I can't remember his name, but it's called The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and it basically these design techniques and architects built this platform for people to trigger emotional responses. And I know this isn't new information, but this guy left Google. He was a creator of Gmail, was in all these meetings to figure out how we can get people to engage more, because more engagement is more ad revenue, more AdSense. Right. Same thing with Facebook. That's why they know exactly how to target you with ads. And that's what I was talking about earlier, like back in the 80s when we would watch cartoons on Saturday mornings, there was regulations on TV that wouldn't allow advertisers or certain advertisers to allow advertisements to kids. You couldn't advertise those things on that during those hours. And that's the thing with Facebook. And
what were some of those things you think, like, obviously you couldn't do nicotine, alcohol,
yeah, but
cigarettes,
I mean, like, alcohol, I don't know, pharmaceuticals. Sure. And we're like one of the only 2 countries in the planet that allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise to us, which is ridiculous. But going back to the social dilemma, so there's all these architects, there's all these engineers, there's all these designers that are coming out and talking about what's going on with Google, what's going on with Facebook, Instagram, and how they keep you engaged, and how can they keep you engaged longer. And as you're engaged longer, the AI gets smarter on how you use social media and why you use social media. And there was this part in the social dilemma where this mother locks down her kids' phones and her husband's and hers in this like little vault plastic thing with a timer that you can't open it. And the key, and this is kind of an over exaggeration, but maybe not in some people's lives or the parents and their kids' lives, is where this little girl basically took a hammer and broke this thing open because her phone kept going off, and she needed to see what was going on in that instance on her phone at that second, where she couldn't sit down for 1 hour and have dinner with her family and talk to her family. She didn't want to engage with her family. She was more concerned about her phone. She kept looking this way every time the phone would go off. And then the son was and these are reenactments. This isn't
Sure.
It was acting.
Dramatization kind of things. Yeah.
Totally. But just kind of giving the example of what this does to a brain and how to keep you engaged and how to keep you online longer. And Google does it, Facebook does it, Instagram does it, Pinterest does it, and the guy that was the vice president or president of Pinterest had to leave because he would work all day. Then he would catch himself at home on Pinterest, or checking out everything that was on there. And he's like, what am I doing? So he turned off all of his notifications, only gave himself a lot amount of time. And his biggest thing was, he's like, what scares you most about social media and where we're at right now? And he said civil war, because of the propagandists that are going on Facebook and Instagram and Google and trying to place a divide where people can sit behind their computer and have no interaction with an actual person.
Right.
They're just typing words, and there's no body language. There's no one sitting across from you looking you in the face, where you have no what's the word?
Personality. There's no.
Well, yeah, there's none of that, but there's no why can't I think of what I'm trying to say right now?
I hope this goes for a really long time, and then we can just chop it. I'll stretch it out so it goes like 15 minutes of just, I don't know. Not dialect, you're not saying, or?
No, there's no consequences.
Oh, okay.
And so if I was to be like, fuck you, bitch, you're a fucking cunt, fuck
Right.
you know what I mean? And then I don't have any consequences. You're wherever you are, and I'm wherever I am, and I'm protected because I'm behind the screen and I don't know you. But now, if it came down to where you and I were sitting across from each other, that would never even be a thing.
No, yeah.
You would have enough respect for that human being, or you'd have enough self-fear to maybe not go and say those things that you would say online.
Yeah. Actually, on that, there's a thing called, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this. I'm like talking to you like it's brand new. Fortnite. You guys ever heard of this thing called Fortnite? Brand new, it just came out. But it's like a video game. And I never played it. I've heard of it a million times over. And actually the first time I heard of it was Dylan Francis was doing some like live stream thing. And so was Deadmau5 as well. They were doing it in this kind
And
of
Diplo.
And I was like, this is kind of cool, like what they're doing, but I don't play video games or anything unless it's like Mario Brothers 2 or something.
That was on Twitch, right?
Yeah. So I was like, and also from like live streaming in the past, a couple months with this whole COVID stuff, I kind of got to know a little bit more about Twitch. I was like, yeah, I'm going to check this stuff out. So I downloaded it on my computer. It was huge. The file was massive. It was like the size of all of my music library. Downloaded it, and I was like, I'm just going to check this out so I can have perspective, right? Like, so if I'm judging something, whether I like it or not, it's because I actually tried it. Checked it out. I lasted for about 15 minutes, and then I was like, I got to get out of this. I never even got into actual like gameplay, but the reason I think I would be really bad at it is that what you were talking about, like there's no consequences. I would very easily be the person that's calling a 12-year-old a little bitch, you little piece of shit, because these kids, since they know there's no consequence. Like I'm man enough to admit, I'm not saying this is like the best thing to do is call some like little kid who you're playing a video game with like names. But I would get that angry. So I'm like, I can't operate in that environment. Like, but you see so many of those things. You watch Twitch and it's just like, some 7-year-old who's just this phenom at this video game talking shit to this 62-year-old dude. And like, I would want to find that person and beat the shit out of them. So like, I have to stay off that stuff, but there is no consequences. Yeah, it is. That's how social media works now. It's like, and not even just to this violent level. You're not held accountable for what you say. You can delete what you say. You can, you know what I mean? Like there's going back into the COVID stuff. There's and my mom specifically, her perspective of this was, fuck, you know, this is the end of the world. The beginning of this was when this started a couple months ago. This is the end of the world, and she's religious, so she attributed it to, you know, something being biblically stated. And I was like, whatever. Like I'm basically just gonna do me and worry about people that I care about close, and not be an asshole to the people that are around me, right? Her opinion on that, or her perspective, changed completely now to what it is. And if you saw on social media, like all the things that said she was one way, you wouldn't know because they're all deleted. You know, there's no accountability for like how we feel day to day. We put them out there, and unless you're the president and there's people doing screenshots of your stuff, like it just goes away. You could just say whatever you want. You can hop on this bandwagon for today. You could be racist today, and you could be fucking the exact opposite tomorrow. Like, and I never said that. I didn't do that. There's no accountability. But going from that to a new dimension, which is what Pioneer DJ's tagline was for the release of the CDJ 3000. So it's for anybody that doesn't know, I feel like anybody that's a DJ does know this already, but I'll kind of recap here. New DJ player was just released a couple days ago. I did a quick briefing from the teaser video they did a few days prior. I didn't know they were actually going to be releasing this thing a few days after. Honestly, not even tooting my own horn, everything that I had kind of said it was going to be based off of this. I took this video they took and they cut it into fours. They made it mirrored images and spun it around and made it look really artistic and abstract. I, in return, spent hours on After Effects, like chopping this apart to see what it would look like. And most of the things I said were accurate. I'm sure you've had a chance to see it, and there's a lot of flack the Pioneer's already getting for this. That is this actually a new dimension, or is this just kind of same as you guys have always produced, but you're charging us more now? So the first question I have for you is, what is your take on the brand new CDJ 3000 from Pioneer?
I mean, from what I've read about it, it's not much different than the 2000 Nexus or the Nexus 2.
Sure,
I know
that's fair.
the screen's a little bit bigger.
It's a lot bigger, actually. I think it's like almost 4 inches bigger.
No, because the screen on the CDJ is at the CDJ 2000
If
Nexus.
you put them next to each other, it's 9.5 inches, I want to say.
The screen is this big?
The screen is about this big.
Yeah, because the CDJ 2000 Nexus 2 is like...
Well, I got the Nexus, and they're Nexus and Nexus. Oh, maybe I think the Nexus 2 are a little bit bigger, aren't they? Because they're touchscreen.
Yeah,
you're right.
They're like
okay, yeah.
They're like 6 inches big. So the thing is this much.
Well, it's a
bigger.
9-inch screen.
Holy Oh, 9 inches this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. So if you look at the CD jog wheel, where the Nexus 2, if you look at the jog wheel in a perfect circle, if you looked straight up, the actual screen is inside. It is smaller than the actual circumference of the wheel.
Diameter.
Now,
yeah.
or diameter, I'm sorry. And if you were to look at and that's of the inside part of the ring, not the actual part that you use the little dots around it that you can, drift left or right with
You're
it.
talking about the internal screen in between the jog wheel.
Yeah. The new one is larger than the outside ring. It's like this much larger. And actually, I can kind of give you an example there if you look.
Yeah, no, I saw it. So Maddie Play Davis, who works for Pioneer, shout out Maddie, posted a picture of the new Pioneer mixer with 3 CDJs on each side of the 3000.
Okay, so the V10 you're talking about, the 6-channel?
And he works for Pioneer, so he was promoting it. And then PJ Villaflor, who's from Des Moines, Iowa, super good producer, and Pioneer, works for Pioneer as well, Pioneer Guru, tests a lot of the controllers, plays guitar with his DJ sets and does some cool stuff.
Fun.
But he posted something about kind of being not very happy with the new CDJ, saying that it was just a kind of a money grab or a way for them to come up with something new to get talked about, since the CDJ Nexus 2000 uh, Nexus 2, right?
Right. Yep.
Is
CDJ
like
2000
is like
Nexus
2
2.
years old or 3 years old now.
Yeah.
And or
Well,
maybe it wasn't him.
so
It was somebody posted something that, oh, it was just another Pioneer money grab for them to change the LED, add a little bigger screen, and charge another $1,000 more than they would if it was a Nexus 2.
sure. Well, so there's a lot more people that I know, and we're gonna dig deep into this, as deep as we did into.
I will say one thing though, that's because when every time Pioneer updates something, all the nightclubs have to carry all that shit because
Right.
now all the riders are updated and saying,
Exactly.
I need this mixer, I need these CDJs, and if you don't have these CDJs and this link and whatever, we're not going to play. And so all these clubs got to go out and spend all this money now again on updated gear to be working with their record box, because if updates aren't there and the CDJs and the mixer aren't talking to each other, then their shit's not going to work and they can't DJ.
Yeah. So we're gonna dig as deep as we did into like food and politics and COVID and things like that into this specific thing, because as a DJ, this is like the flagship. And I say that only because this is what we've been fed to have it be the flagship, right? Pioneer DJ is industry standard, right? Like friends use Tractors, friends used in the past Final Scratch. And there'll always be people that use like different softwares like Virtual DJ or whatever it may be. But when it comes down to it, or Denon gear as well, which is very comparable these days, and in a lot of ways, I think it's better than what even Pioneer just released. But there is always going to be a centralized thing, device or brand that everybody gravitates towards. And so far, it's been Pioneer, and I think for a while, it's still going to be Pioneer. So
it's just the industry standard. And if you look at even not even CDJs or the other mixers, you see a lot of people using the DDJ 1000 SC or what, I think that's what it's called, the DJ 1000 DDJ.
The all-in-one controller.
Yeah, the new one that Corey has.
It's a DDJ 1000, and then they also make the Serato version, which is the DDJ 1000 SRT, which is Serato.
Yep. So I've seen both of those. So, but there's also people that like Nick Lizer, Tommy Banks, he uses a different one, but then he ended up going to the DDJ 1000. So there's a lot of people that still stick with Pioneer, but in the controller base.
Sure. So what I think Pioneer did here is actually my first take on it was once they said the price point was going to be $22.99, and if you guys follow me on social media, I was like, if this goes over $1,999.99, I am not buying it. Right? It is going to have to stay under that price point. I think when the Nexus 2 came out, they were $21.99. And you can even kind of get them up until the release of the 3000. They were all about that range. The Generation 1 Nexus 1, you could buy them while the Nexus 2 were out for like $1,500 each, or a couple $100 cheap, which is why I actually bought those. They lack some features like a touch screen. They only had 3 cue points versus the 4 with the option of the fourth, or the second set of banks of 4 cue points. But what I think Pioneer did with this one, even though it looks very similar and a lot of people are hating on it, I can see where it is as good as what I think they could do. It's actually better than what I thought they were going to do. And why that is, I'll start with the industry standard, right? So the industry standard is, it used to be 5-6 years ago, before controllers were like the thing of the future. It was just CDJs or turntables. And then it was just these odd and ends controllers that people would create that were just, super beta looking and things like that. Like the CDJ or the Newmark CDX. I had one of those. This has everything you would get in a 2000, which all the pro DJs use that are going to be going to festivals, whether it's Keizo or Skrillex or fucking, you name it. Any big act that is familiar with these things that isn't really using it for anything other than playing their tracks. Really, like you think of how maybe a local guy who's really crafty and would like to do cue point things and like all these little features, they really just want 2 units that play their songs, because they're producers and they produce kind of their intros and outros to go together, right? So they don't have to be pushing a million buttons when they're live. They can alleviate some of that stress. So for those guys, they don't want to take away the things that they know are tried and true that make these a complex unit versus a simple understanded unit, right? They already comprehended it.
Well, it's if you're gonna do that, like say you are on CDJs and use using Serato, why would you go spend $2,000 on $2,000 per CDJ plus $2,000 for a mixer if you're just going to use that? And
Exactly.
why wouldn't you just go spend $1,000 on a controller?
Yeah,
Which
and
you get the same size platters, you get the same Nexus 900 Nexus 2 built into
like the
that
controller.
into that controller. So
Yeah, yeah.
you're getting the same sound quality, you're getting the same feel, and yet you're spending 20% of what you would spend on that setup.
So like anything, when you could go right to the girl that sees a girl that's a model like Kim Kardashian's like, I want to be that, right? You always want to be to the highest level of whatever that is. But this isn't,
I wouldn't say Kim Kardashian.
or if you're an Instagram girl, she's super popular on there. But for a DJ, the
Giselle.
the most expensive unit, it was the 2000 prior to this. So even though you didn't need it, you could use the controller. You still see yourself as buying something less than the best professional level, what they're using at a festival, right? You want to use exactly what they're using. So if you do play a show, you can literally just grab what you have on a thumb drive and you're familiar with everything, right? And what they did with this unit is they incorporated everything they had on the last ones. The fact that the future is always changing. There's always new technology that's added into it. All these controllers that they've created already have this centralized dial unit, the album art and everything's in the center. They've put that on the 1000 like Corey has, or the SRT, even Indy I think has that as well. It has that, so that's familiar. So it's created the unit, and they even mentioned it on Pioneer. It's meant for festivals. It's meant for the millions and millions of dollars that they're going to put at a festival. This is pennies. This is nothing. It's meant for the club that's going to have hundreds of people in there. They can afford it because their drinks are overpriced. It's not meant for the guy that's going to practice at home. So the fact that it is $2,000, yeah, for a guy who lives at home and lives with his mom as a bedroom DJ, this is astronomical. With a mixer, it's going to be $4,000 for the units, $6,000 plus. Yeah, it's insane. But that's why they made the controller unit, and they started with the 1000, changing what things look like, and incorporating more so the fact that cue points now can be used as actual triggerable things on there versus just being kind of like a secondary feature that's just like you can use it if you want. So they incorporated that into this device on the top of it, which is great because as a guy who uses cue points for everything, it's amazing. It didn't change much other than gave you a bigger screen. It's still a touch screen, but now similar to what Denon's doing, it's like a multi-touch thing. You can also preview your tracks. So there's say you're going through 40 tracks or whatever. You can sit and hold on to the little waveform and listen to it like PFL, like pre-fader listen, on every one of them just with a simple little click. So that's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, that's how Tractor and Serato have been for a long time.
But inside of an actual hardware unit?
No, but I'm just saying they've been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
So for us,
you can do it on Rekordbox as well.
Yeah, but that's what we were talking about, Pioneer not being up to date on those things when Serato and Tractor have had them we were talking about the smart playlist, where Serato had the playlist already where you could do all those things where you could highlight those tracks and what had more energy, or you could color code them. And Tractor's finally got to that that level with the smart playlist. But going back to Pioneer's kind of like a car company. They have their low end and then they have their high end, and which they do for festivals and headlining touring DJs is that's what they've basically implemented for the standard is the festival rig, and that you have to have that festival rig in nightclubs, which I don't understand why a fucking DJ needs 6 CDJs or even 4. Like if you're not a turntablist or someone that's
I mean, a lot of house heads will use 3 or 4 decks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here's the thing that it's just being able to have their playlist set up so it's not like a more stressful thing. You know what I mean? Where they're like, I got this track. I know this track I'm playing in 2 more tracks. I got this next track lined up, and then I got another track lined up over here. Or I'm going to play this track with this vocal because I know this vocal will be, say, I don't know, we'll just say Rihanna something or Dajé, a vocal over here that's a vocal stem, and you got this track and this vocal fits so perfect that you want to be able to have that triggered and be able to have the cue points set.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's good for those kind of DJs, but if you're just a guy that's going to play an open format night and you have 4 decks, you're not using them.
For open format, I use a third deck only, and I used TJR as an example. He's a little bit more of a turntablist than I am, obviously, but
Shout out to TJR, one of my homies.
he's insane. But he would take his 2 decks, and then he would have another. He'd have a track playing on the left, fading into the track on the left, or you'd have a track on the right playing far right, track on the left fading in, and then he would be scratching on his secondary deck or
Yeah.
whatever.
No,
And I
that's
think
it.
that
He's
that's what
always
I
been
do
that
is
way.
like, when you're not using a laptop at all, you don't have like the little sample pad or things. You have to have kind of like another controller for that. So like if it's what, these simple little samples that everybody's used, I think you need another controller. And it sucks that just to play that sample, it costs $2,000, but I can see where they use it a little bit more. A couple more features that they got on this that are kind of cool. Now they do have the key sync feature. So they've always had the beat sync and key sync, but now they have individual buttons for that, which are pretty cool. They did remove, and I talked about this to you earlier, the vinyl speed adjust for the start. And then there was an individual one for the stop as well. So like when you start up a track, if you wanted it to slowly, progressively start, that kind of like, however long you want it to start, they don't have that anymore. It's just for the stop. It's the break. So I guess that's not that big of a deal because I don't think anybody's that I know has ever used that to start up. But other than that, it has a lot of the same features. The big thing, and we talked about this again, is it removed the CD drive, which is good. I thought it was going to be cheaper since they did this, and that's where I was super disappointed. I guess there's probably a lot of other tech in it. There's the processor inside of it is that of a computer. So loading a track with all
Much
this extra
faster.
data is just instant. They were showing an example on Pioneer.
I think it's twice as fast as the Nexus 2.
They had, and that was the argument, is a lot of people said that the Nexus 2 actually was slower than the Nexus 1 for loading. But then the opposing argument was, well, they're loading more information on a Nexus 2, so it has to take longer.
I thought they doubled the size of the processor, or it's more cores of a processor. So it's quad core or 6 core.
Okay.
You should look that up.
Yeah. We can
I'm dumb
check it here,
when
but-
it comes to processing.
I also know
I just know how fast it is
yeah.
by the speed, but I see it at.
So the fact that it's people argue the fact that it's a CDJ and it doesn't have a CD unit. If you guys Google this, you'll find out that CDJ doesn't stand for compact disc jockey. It actually stands for, and since its inception, it stood for controller disc jockey. So it is still a controller. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little sketchy, I guess. There's an assumption that people are going to put it. But I'm not even mad that they did this because we don't use CDs anymore. There's not really, nobody's using time-coded CDs anymore. 2 other things that they did real quick that are great for it. If you've ever used the CDJ, they're basically plastic. It's a hard plastic. Now the whole top face is aluminum.
Oh, it's way better.
Yeah. So, and then again,
Lighter and more durable.
if you've ever used a unit, this has always been my gripe and why I didn't buy one for so long, is if you use a CDJ, any unit all the way up to, except for the 3000, so everything, even the Nexus 2, and put your hand on the jog wheel and move, it wobbles. It wiggles. It feels like a toy in a way. It's just
it is. Those pieces, the wheels underneath are plastic.
Yeah. So it's always felt like crap. And even the ones I have now, like I said,
How many of you broke?
I've never broken one, but I only just switched to CDJs, the first gen Nexus, like a couple months back. I'd always used, God, what did I use before that? XDJ, which were also garbage, even worse than the CDJs. I've used turntables, which those are solid, obviously, but the new jog wheel on these are rock solid. They don't move at all. So, and then instead of it being 2 individual pieces, it's one solid piece now. So if you've ever used, back in the day, I had a DDJ RZ, which is a record box version of the SZ. It's like it used to be their largest unit all in one before there was screens on it, unit for record box. And the jog wheel on that was, it's similar to this. It was like rock solid, didn't wiggle. So they have that. They also have the display in the center for your album art and stuff. And it's been said that they're going to add other features and stuff. And now they also implemented the 3-band equalizer. So those are some of the features. And I'm sure you guys have had a chance as DJs to kind of look at this, especially by the time you actually hear this podcast. But so that's new. Another device that came out that is new that I don't have as much information, but it's kind of in your wheelhouse since you're a Native Instruments guy, is the Machine Plus. Have you checked that out?
No.
So it's the actual touring rig.
I've had Machine, and it was super latent with Ableton, and I never went farther than that because I was like, why do I need a drum machine when I have drum machines built in or VSTs
Sure.
that don't have latency, and I don't have to like update this with new sounds to be able to play them in Ableton, and it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And so when they came out with Machine Studio, it was much better. It was much more integrated, and you could actually write. I mean, you could write music on Machine, but it was much more easier on Machine Studio. And I'm assuming with this new machine that it's integrated as a piece of hardware more than it is to use with a DAW.
Exactly. You nailed it right there. It is. I think it's going for $1,299. I want to double check here. I think it's $1,399 or $1,299. But it's and actually I can give you here a visualize of it. But yeah, it's so
It looks like the original
I've seen.
machine.
Yeah, it does look very much like the other ones. It's a little bit larger, but it's. I watched Flume. I've watched a couple other artists and stuff that. God, I'm trying to think what the other person's name is. Girlfriend's big artist, or big favorite artist. But the point is behind this is a lot of people that use these things live, right? Like in a live performance, they're a singer or a DJ. It's a secondary unit, right? You're not playing live off of these things, but there is a little bit of a latency in them. There is the fact that you're using a computer, you've got all these extra things. And if you're a performing artist, for the most part, you don't even need a computer, right? You're playing it. There's a backing track. So this kind of incorporates all that. You can actually have like a full-fledged track on there as well. So it's almost kind of like an Ableton Push in a way, minus the computer. So yeah, it's $1,399 and it weighs 5.5 pounds. So it's a solid piece of unit or solid piece of gear, but it has a quad core Intel Atom 1.6 gigahertz or gigahertz processor. So it's basically like
Having an iMac, or I mean a MacBook Pro.
It's kind of like the 1.6 will be kind of like a MacBook Air inside of it, which is still powerful for what that is.
Yeah, but if you're only
That's
only
all you're doing,
processing
yeah.
audio without plugins,
Yeah.
I mean that's smoking fast.
So those are
on my new i9. It's 2.96 core,
oh wow.
and I can.
Yeah, I think this is only like a quad.
Yeah, I have
2.6 quad or
that
something.
same exact laptop. But I mean it's still fast, but the new one is insane. I ran a speed test on it, and it was 4 times as fast as that.
Oh yeah. I look at this and I use it just basically for DJing. Everything else, graphic design, all that's on the computers. But this is like, the more I see things, and everybody knows this. When you got on the internet 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you had to wait for like a loading page or something, you're like, okay, come on. Now it's like, I want it now. Phone has to load like this. If it doesn't load like this, it's a piece of shit. Fix it. I think I'm getting to that point with that computer where I need to get another one. But anyways, to kind of wrap this up, because I think we're gonna run a little bit long here.
Wrap it up. This is fun.
I think we're like an hour and a half in right now. So the biggest things are that the new record box came out. You guys can check that out. If you check out my page, you'll see that I kind of talked about that for quite a while. The CDJ 3000 came out, and Machine Plus is coming out very soon. So those are kind of the new things, the DJs. But yeah, you guys can check us out on Instagram or Facebook at Creative Cult Pod. Our website is tccult.com. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a Wings challenge. Do you got any gigs or anything like that coming up that you want to promo, add? Got any?
No, I'm not telling them because there's too many Karens out there that want to take pictures and be a bunch of bitches. So fuck y'all.
All right.
If you want to know, you can message me.
So fuck the Karens, and thank you guys so much for listening. This has been the Creative Cult Podcast. I am Rodney, and on behalf of Corey, he's saying adios.
Who's a bitch and not here. We need to talk about that Chloe meme though. So there,
As I'm actually just outroing here, you know what we need to do? We need to talk. Okay.
no, we need to do this meme because it's hilarious.
All right, we're gonna do this meme here.
So in Canada, there's a package and it says beef and it says, "My name is Chloe. I wanted to live. Your personal choice killed me. Don't buy it." And the meme says, "I would look for one with my name on it like I do those Coke bottles." You know that's funny. No, but we're going to outro. So take your vitamin D, take your vitamin C, take your zinc. You'll feel good. And join us next week because now we're going to do this shit every Thursday. And you guys will be getting it on Friday.
Yeah, and also, but before we go, we do implore you guys to interact with us on Instagram. We're kind of formulating an idea here with this potential new studio we're going to be getting into, like a once a week interaction with you guys, whether it's for 15 minutes or half an hour on whatever social media platform we find the best to do this on. But we want to interact with you guys. We want to answer questions that you guys have specifically, so we don't go off on tangents talking about, you know, some shit that you guys don't care about.
Or if you like tangents, tell us.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, so we're gonna try to do that. Let you guys chime in. We got a ton of DJ friends. We appreciate all the positive feedback you guys have been messaging all of us individually and as a group. So thank you guys so much.